Hello folks, hope you're well. Today we're going to dive back into MF Doom's awesome track, Rapp, Snitch Knishes, and we're going to take a look at the bass part. We were blown away by the response to the first video and it was great chatting to you all in the comments. This video was actually requested in the comments by somebody called Luke Tanner, so hello Luke, and I think it'll be great for all the bass players out there. The bass part itself is a super cool, dare I say it, funky bass line, and there's some really interesting stuff in there from a technique point of view. I think the thing that I found hardest about this bass line is the articulation of the notes in the part, and this will become clear as we go through it. As you heard in the intro, I've made a little backing track to play along to. Please don't judge my beat making skills too harshly. It's just there so you can hear how the bass guitar locks in with the drums. I've also included my guitar parts from the first video so that you can hear it all in context. So let's get into it. I think the best way to think about this bass part is in terms of the chords that make up the loop. Each of the four chords are in a slightly different area on the neck, and we've got little interconnecting phrases that sort of join them all up. In the case of three of the chords, they actually use basically the same position on the neck, which looks like that. It's sort of almost like a power chord on a guitar, where we've got, in the case of the first chord, we've got 3rd fret on the E string, which is a G, a 5th fret on the A string, which is a D, and a 5th fret on the D string, which is another G. Theoretically speaking, we've got the root note of the chord here, the 5th here, and the root or the octave again up here. In between the chords, we've got some chromatic runs, which in context work really well, but when you're learning them, you might think, is that really the part? But I'm pretty sure that it is. We'll take a closer look now at the whole part. We start on the 3rd fret of the E string, so that's our G root note. And then we're going to move through that power chord shape that I mentioned earlier, so it's going to be... So we've got 2 on the 3rd fret of the E string, 2 picks on the 5th fret of the A string, and 1 pick on the 5th fret of the D string. You want to keep those notes really short. You want to almost sort of imagine that you're squeezing each note individually. We're not trying to build up a chord here. There's a fill over the G chord, and it's very quick, and it goes like this, like that. That's sort of full speed. You could be forgiven for thinking that this is muted, and maybe it is just a mute note at points. As I said, the part varies throughout, but certainly a lot of the time there's a pitch to it, and the pitch is 2nd fret on the D string, open D string, and then 3rd fret E string back to our root note. So the whole phrase slowly. And you want to clip those notes as much as possible. You can hear I'm laying into that 3rd note and I'm shortening these notes. The next chord is our F sharp minor, or F sharp minor 7 I played on my guitar part. And we're going to use the same power chord shape but a fret lower, and this time starting from the highest note. So we're going to start on the D string this time and work our way back to the E string. So it's going to sound like this. Like so. That's 4th fret on the D string, 4th on the A, and 2nd note, the root note F sharp on the E string. The run that follows that is a bit tricky actually. There's a couple of ways that you could play this, and this is certainly not the most obvious way I would suggest to play it. The reason I picked this is that you can hear there's a slide between the 3rd chord and the 4th chord, which we'll get to. But the only way you can slide between the 3rd and the 4th is to do the 3rd chord up here, which means that our run needs to land us somewhere up here. So the way I play the run is 2nd fret E string, open A string. I'm going to use that time to move up the neck to the 6th fret of the E string. So I'll play the whole thing nice and slowly for you. That run will take a little bit of getting used to, but using open strings to transition between shapes on the bass is a really useful thing to be able to do. Our run ended on the 6th fret, and we're going to begin the B major chord at the 7th. So we're just going to move up one, and dead simple on the B major. All you're going to do is play through that power chord shape from the lowest note to the highest. So that's 7th fret on the E string, that's our B. 9th fret on the A string, that's an F sharp. And 9th fret on the D string, that's another B. There's no run as such into our final chord, the D major, or D major 7 I think I had on my guitar part. But as I mentioned, there is a slide, and that's why we're up here doing the B. So we've got the B power chord, and then we're going to just slide down to the 5th fret to pick up our next chord. The run on the D chord is in 2 parts. The first bit is this bit. Pretty straightforward, it's just 5th fret on the A string, then down to the 7th on the E, then down to the 5th on the E, and then back to the 5th on the A. My main tip here is that, particularly for the last 2 notes, you want to get a sort of semi-bar thing going on there where you're playing both of those notes at the same time, because it's really quick. The next part of the run is the chromatic bit that I mentioned. So we go, there's your chromatic notes. Out of context, this does sound a bit weird, but I'm pretty sure it's what's on the record. So we've got 7th fret on the E string, then we've got 5th fret on the A string, and 6th fret on the A string. So I'll play the whole thing over the D chord. From there we go back to the start of the phrase. Now, we talked about this before. Every so often in the song, you've got this E major chord, and of course we need to factor that in our bass line. The rest of the part remains exactly the same. All that happens is when we get to our D, we're going to change the run that we do. And instead of doing that chromatic run that I mentioned, we're going to put this bit in, which starts on an E, that's the 7th fret of the A string. Then we go to the 9th fret of the E string, and then we go back to the 7th fret of the A for 2 notes. So I'll play that in context. I've referenced that final run against the record, and I'm 99% sure that's what he plays. It does sound a bit weird out of context, but when you put it with the track, it works really well. So now I'm going to play the whole thing really slowly. And then we'll do the alternative ending. Once you've got the notes happening, the main thing that you want to work on is the articulation of the part and making sure every note is the length it needs to be. Some notes need to be longer and you need to lay into some notes, and other notes are going to need to be much, much shorter. The final thing to say, and you really don't need to worry about this until you can play it comfortably, is that the part is going to feel a lot better and more authentic if you are able to lay back on the beat. This is quite a hard thing to communicate to you via a YouTube video, but listen to the record and by all means listen to my version and hopefully you'll see what I mean. So there you go. Please let me know in the comments how you get on with this, and of course any suggestions for future videos are more than welcome. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and of course keep playing.